We need the sign. Linda, sign.
You can put it all there and then we'll just take the top one out.
Hello, Senator Blood.
Hello, Chair Linehan.
Welcome to the revenue.
Thank you. Are you ready for me to start already?
We are ready for you to start.
All right. So good afternoon to Chair Linehan and members of the Revenue Committee. My name is Senator Carol Blood, and that is spelled C-A-R-O-L, B as in boy, L-O-O-D as in dog, and I represent Nebraska Legislative District 3, which comprises Western Bellevue and Eastern Papillion, Nebraska. And today, I'm introducing LB 26 to establish a retail delivery fee for Nebraska. So it's my understanding there's a similar bill that is considered an excise tax, but I think you'll find that there are several major differences that mostly pertain to exemptions, such as making sure we don't burden our small or new businesses. The retail delivery fee has been implemented in states such as Colorado, Minnesota, and New York. We followed Colorado's model, seeing it was as reasonable for businesses and consumers in Nebraska. Each retail delivery from a motor vehicle will be charged a 27-cent fee. Each retail sale is a single retail delivery that would be subject to the fee. Items that are already exempt in Nebraska would remain exempt, as do wholesale deliveries. To ease the tax burden on new businesses, we made sure that the first year a business is formed, they would not be subject to the retail fee. Also, businesses with gross sales under 500K would not be subject to the fee. Businesses would have the option to pay the fee at the point of delivery rather than pass it on to the consumers, removing the headache of separately itemizing the retail fee for each delivery. The Department of Revenue could collect these fees for the general fund, where it can be appropriated for tax relief. In this way, we can generate revenue without disrupting small businesses or their customers. This special session, it appears we are focused on removing sales tax exemptions to generate revenue while placing the financial burden on working class Nebraskans and small businesses. LB 26 is a way to capture revenue while having a negligible impact on Nebraskans. A flat 27-cent fee for every retail delivery will not have a substantial effect on product sales and the business that has the opportunity to absorb the cost without the consumer seeing it. A study by CDM Smith Consultancy for a prospective retail delivery fee in Washington found that a flat 30-cent fee would only result in the average customer paying between $13 and $14 a year for retail delivery fees minus any exemptions. Like Colorado and Minnesota, we actually have exemptions for new businesses and smaller businesses, so we have a further cushion for Nebraska consumers. Many of you were here when we implemented sales tax for online sales such as Amazon or eBay. Many senators claimed that it would negatively impact those sales, but as we all know, the opposite has happened. We have seen the rise of online delivery services at Temu, and frankly, I don't feel guilty about that because Temu is stealing your data, Amazon, eBay, and others. With these various delivery services and faster shipping options, businesses have more revenues than ever. We as a body need to be more creative in capturing revenue from burgeoning industries such as online deliveries, rather than directly raising sales taxes on hardworking Nebraskans. Colorado is expecting $18.8 million in revenue in its first 2 years, which will account for 15% of a new infrastructure revenue. And Minnesota, $46.4 million with a 40-cent fee. Now, I understand this retail delivery fee alone will not make up for the shortfall proposed in the governor's property tax cuts, but we can use this in conjunction with other revenue streams that are being presented this week. It's clear that as we become busier and more dependent on technology, this sector will continue to grow. Why would we possibly wait any longer to take advantage of this opportunity? Another aspect to the fee we consider as a body is that we can use this to close infrastructure funding gaps for maintenance of roads. Gas taxes in states across the country are struggling to keep up with infrastructure costs, and more electric vehicles on the road means less revenue from that tax. Coupled with the explosion of online deliveries, it will become more difficult for Nebraska to maintain and fund construction of roads. We should explore whether the retail delivery fee could be useful in closing the funding gap for Nebraska's infrastructure. I do not think we should have a problem imposing a 27-cent fee on conglomerates such as Amazon if they get to use our roads at an ever-increasing rate if the cost is passed to consumers. We are only talking basically about a quarter. The same amount of money you use to get your car to Aldi's. A retail delivery fee is a more digestible avenue to capture revenue than simply removing sales tax exemptions negatively affecting various industries in Nebraska. As a body, we can be more creative raising funds without placing a huge financial burden on Nebraska families, and we should look towards growing industries like online deliveries that use our infrastructure for their growing profits. I thank you for your time today and consideration for LB 26. The aforementioned report on a prospective retail delivery fee in Washington had a lot of good information and the fees effect on businesses and consumers, and I would be happy to email it to you. I chose not to print it out and hand it out because it was 121 pages. The good news is there's lots of pictures. And I just didn't feel comfortable using our resources to print out 12 copies of 121 pages, but I'm happy to email it to you upon request.
Thank you. Excuse me. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Cal.
Thank you, Chair Linehan. Senator Blood, this is an interesting idea. Based on some of the conversations that we've heard a lot about some taxes are shifting and some are regressive. Would this be considered a regressive tax because everyone is being charged the same amount, regardless of how little or how much it is? Because that's been one of the things I've heard.
You know, I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay.
You never hear me use words like that usually. What I look for is this a tax that's fair? Is this a tax that is not a burden to the average consumer, especially if business chooses to pay for it? Is this a tax that will be confusing? Like when we talk about excise taxes or other taxes, sometimes it can be confusing because when you talk about the software and whatnot, you're talking about sometimes, you know, you might go to Lincoln, and I always love to look at my receipt when I eat in Lincoln because there's like 5 things they're taking taxes out on. And that's all got to do with the computer. Well, if you have one flat tax, you don't have that mess. And we're not taxing anything that isn't taxed now, which is kind of great, which we're not, like, I know that if I tax a candy, I hate to use this example, but this is what we're talking about right now. If I tax a candy bar or soda, I know that if that's the treat that the kid's going to have that day, that I'm taxing that kid. But when we saw the numbers and that the average consumer is going to spend maybe $14 a year, to me, that seems fair. And it's, you know, I know we're going to have people come out against us. But the question when they came to my office, and they were kind enough to come to my office to tell me they were opposing it, the question I had is like, would you rather have more items taxed, or would you rather have like a delivery tax? And when I look at Amazon, and I use that as an example because we're right down the street from a warehouse on 370, you know, how many vehicles are on our roads and using our roads? A lot of vehicles, FedEx and Amazon, and I can't think of the other delivery services. Those are 2 that come to mind right now. And those sales are taking away from our storefronts. Like, and we're not reinventing the wheel. They're doing this in other states, right?
And so just to clarify, so when you think that this is, I'm trying to get at, is it the amount or is it the tax policy? Because we've heard people say, well, it's just bad policy to do things this way, regardless of how much the amount is. Which do you think?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Do you think that having a flat tax or a flat fee is good tax policy?
I think it's a fair tax policy,
Thank you.
especially when we're talking about trying to protect our families that are hardworking Nebraskans.
I agree. Thank
I
you.
do think that's fair.
Thank you, Senator Cuff. Are there other questions from the committee? Senator Merman.
Yes, thanks for bringing this bill. It's a novel idea. Why didn't you target it toward property tax relief with this special session being about property taxes and of course using the roads and the infrastructure like you said?
Well, that's why we have appropriations. Then I like to put things in general fund, and then whatever the body decides they want to do with the fund, that's what they do with it. And we're trying to balance the alleged 3-legged stool I'm not sure I agree with the three-legged stool system, but that's another topic. So yeah, I put things in general fund because I felt like then it could be up to the body where they wanted to put it. And in this case, you might want to put it towards infrastructure, which still helps property taxes because we're finding ways to fund things at the government level. So if we fund things at the government level, we have more freedom to put money in the property tax relief fund, or we have the ability to pay for that employee that we have to have. Like I try and take the simplest path. So we can use it for property tax relief if you choose to do that. But right now and Senator Von Gillern asked that question the other day. And I think I told Senator Linehan, that's why I did it too, is that I just put it in the general fund and you guys can do whatever the heck you want to do with it. It's all for the greater good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Merman. Are there other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thanks. You'll stay to close.
Yes, ma'am. I think Senator Bostar and I are going to be switching after. We both have two bills and then we flip committees. So just so you know, I might have to leave.
Okay. Are there proponents for LB 26? Any proponents? Are there opponents?
Chairwoman Linehan and members of the Revenue Committee, my name is Rich Otto, Richotto, and I'm testifying in opposition to LB 26 on behalf of the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, the Nebraska Hospitality Association, the Nebraska Grocery Industry Association, and the Nebraska Retail Federation. Implementing a 27-cent business delivery fee on goods and prepared food would hurt business, especially local restaurants, caterers, and grocery stores. These businesses have increasingly depended on delivery services to survive in the digital age. This just raised the cost of doing business for them and puts higher prices on consumers. One of our biggest concerns is compliance. This does require significant software upgrades to be in compliance with the fee in order to assess it to those things that are taxable. I will acknowledge that Senator Blood's fee, if one item is taxable, it does. So we don't have to sort through taxable versus non-taxable items. But software companies still tend to ding us pretty good on the change. Again, I do want to bring up credit card interchange fees. Retailers do pay 2 to 3% to the banks for nearly every transaction. And that would hold true on this 27 cents. Again, we would remit all of it, but only be getting 97 cents on the dollar back from the bank. So there is a cost to the retailer or restaurant. It's not fully passed through to the consumer. This delivery fee also particularly affects those with mobility issues, low-income families that rely on essential goods. Many families struggle with tight budgets, and additional fees would just add to their financial burden. This could force them to cut back on essential items and potentially negatively impact their health. We saw this during the COVID-19 pandemic, underscoring the importance of delivery services to maintain health, specifically for older and immune-compromised individuals. While some might argue that delivery fees could reduce the number of deliveries on the road, it's a little more complex. Each delivery system can reduce the number of trips by having multiple deliveries in a van, thus saving potential emissions. We just don't believe a delivery fee on goods and prepared food is the right approach. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Powell.
Thank you, Chairman Linehan. Okay, I did the real quick math. So for a 0.27 cents, so 27 cents, 3% of that is 0.008. So we're not talking like, and we're talking less than a penny that would go to credit card fees. So I don't know that that's a viable complaint with this.
It doesn't sound like much, but over time it adds up.
Thank you, Senator Cal. Are there other questions from the committee? So when I order food from multiple places, I pay an occupation tax. So if I'm ordering in Omaha, right?
Right, yeah. So you're exactly right. Occupation taxes, and we actually charge sales tax upon the occupation. So there is some pyramiding with this. That's potentially one of the policy things that Senator Kauth brings up, whether or not this is good policy. Typically, they call that pyramiding when you have taxes upon taxes and then a fee as well. So
But this isn't a tax on that tax. This is just another
The
27
fee, but you
cents.
are also paying most of these goods. Now, groceries, other things aren't subject to sales tax, but say you're ordering a pizza, you already are paying sales tax plus the Omaha food occupation tax plus another 27 cents.
Okay. Any other questions? One of the problems we have here, and it's somebody's fault, we don't have any idea what this would generate.
Yeah, well, it is significantly less than Senator Hughes's with the percentage. I think we were doing rough math and I had 15 million in my head.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Are there other opponents? Are there any other opponents? Are there anyone wanting to speak in the neutral position? Senator Blood, would you like to close? And we had three letters, all opponents.
So let's put things in perspective. Do you remember Omaha's restaurant tax?
We don't have to remember to pay it.
Yeah, I know. Well, we pay a lot in Lincoln too. But do you remember everybody that came forward, including the Restaurant Association, and the sky was going to fall and people were going to go out to eat anymore, and it was going to rain cats and dogs and there'll be a plague. But seriously, it was. I understand that it's their job to come and oppose bills like this. And I didn't know at the time that Senator Hughes was going to have her excise tax. But I think there's a big difference in the two bills. Her bill will definitely generate more money. But what I was trying to do is to be as fair as I possibly could to small businesses, which is usually when chambers come out against these bills. They say, well, it's going to kill small businesses. Well, no, it's not, because there's exemptions for small businesses. And I'm sure they do have to pay for the nose for when a software company has to come and help them, because unfortunately they usually don't have good IT people, just like the state doesn't. And then we end up paying for those services. So that's something they should maybe fix. I don't know if you get grocery delivery, but I do a lot, because I find that when I go to the grocery store to just run in, I can't get out for several hours because people, start counting with everyone stop and talk. And that's a good thing. But there are times when I don't have time for that and I do grocery delivery and I pay for that privilege. I pay bakers a yearly fee to come and deliver my groceries. It's kind of awesome. They'll even put them inside my door, so I don't have to go out in the rain or the snow. And we tip them for that, even though we're paying for it as well, right? We're talking basically about a quarter. And to say that it's going to be hard on poor families, well, you know what else was hard on poor families that grocery stores benefited from? Shrinkflation. Remember that during just a couple of years ago? How all of a sudden we were paying more for something that was smaller, and nobody seemed to notice at the grocery stores, but they were charging us for it. I'm not here to trash grocery stores. I love grocery stores. I love what they've become, and I love how convenient they are. But I just want us to be honest about what we're really talking about. We're talking about a quarter. We're talking about a quarter that is going to bring us in revenue that we can use for property tax relief, that we can use for infrastructure, whatever we choose to use it for. My goal is somehow it helps lower property taxes because we're taking control of the revenue that we need to generate. We have a revenue generation. I'm not saying that right. We're not generating revenue well. We can do better. And I want it to do in a way that's not painful to people. And if we're worried about lower income families, there aren't a lot of lower income families that are paying $30 or more a month for grocery delivery. And people with disabilities likely are not either. And if they are, a quarter isn't going to make a difference on a budget. It's a quarter. And I would think that they would like the fact that maybe they get to live in their houses longer because we lowered the property taxes because we're smart enough to come up with this tax. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's being done. It's being successful. It is raising, as you heard in the introduction, tens of millions of dollars in other states. We can pass this like they passed the restaurant tax, and I guarantee it's going to be a memory a year later that no one remembers. And so I really I'm begging you to please consider this. I'm doing a lot of begging this year. I'm begging you to please consider this. And I want you to remember the Omaha restaurant tax and all the hubbub that was involved. And that was a big thing. And I guarantee, did any of you stop going out to eat? Yeah, me either. Right? Yeah, and I think I tip more than I used to too. So
Thank you very much.
I think he has a question.
Yes, Senator Van Gillen.
Thank you, Senator Blood. I think it's intriguing. I'm not opposed to the idea. I want to do a little bit more homework on it. I do think that in the issue of fairness, we do want to recognize. You said several times that they're using our roads. Well, there are thousands of vehicles that are registered to Amazon and FedEx and UPS in the state of Nebraska that are all paying property taxes and road use taxes and excise tax on fuel and everything else. So they're not driving those for free on our roads.
But are they paying the fuel tax because hasn't Amazon gone electric?
A lot of them have.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
And
that
there
was
is
my
an
point. Maybe I
EV
didn't
fuel.
make that
There is an
clear.
EV charge, but whether it's appropriate or not, or anyway, like I said, I'm not trying to shoot the idea
No,
down.
I'm
I just want to
having
be
a
realistic,
conversation with you. Yeah.
And I did look up the Sarpy County Fulfillment Center that you said is not
Mhm.
far from where you live, pays 2.6 million in property taxes last year. So they're not taking a free ride.
No, I don't think they're
on-
taking a free
on
ride. I don't
Citizens of
disagree.
Nebraska, but I do find it intriguing, and I do like the idea of a flat rate versus a percentage. And I gripe about the restaurant tax every time I pay the bill, but it has not changed my behavior.
And that's the point. It's like, it's a necessary evil. If you can
Yeah.
afford to go out to eat, you can
Thank
afford
you.
that little bit, right? And
Thank-
I'm going to be one of their biggest customers because I buy everything online.
Thank you, Senator Van Gillen. Any other questions? Over here. Isn't it cheaper?
It does.
Oh, I'm sorry. Senator, go ahead.
Thank you. I may have missed it in your open, but I know you said this bill was modeled on some other bills, but how did you come up with the 27 cents? the amount?
We mirrored ours after Colorado.
Colorado's. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
We looked at the other states and I thought that their fees were too high. I mean, it's weird how I thought 40 cents was higher than 27 cents, but when I did the math as to how much it would cost the average consumer that actually uses Amazon, was the example, one of the examples I used. I mean, it's $14 or $15 a year. And that's not much. And that's the average consumer. So there'll be more people that spend more and people that spend less. But even then, I mean, add up in your head, how many deliveries would it take to add up, what's 15 divided by 27 cents?
So you said you modeled it off some other states.
Off
So-
Colorado.
So some were higher, some of the
Yeah,
other
some were
states you
higher.
looked at were higher.
And some were more complicated. I just want to make it easy for consumers and for businesses, and I want to protect our small businesses, which I feel this does. It's hard to be a small business, especially with inflation. It's hard to be a small business without inflation. And so I don't want to put an extra burden on them. And I do hear what the chambers say about new businesses, but it's really the little guy that keeps our communities going, right? So I want to make sure we gave them a break. And again, anything that's exempt now remains exempt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. You can't drive to the grocery store and back for 27 cents.
aggressive.
Actually, I could, but my time also has value.
Right, but I mean,
Yeah,
a
it's
mile
true.
is what,
It's
65 cents is what
I think
they
that's a
figure?
very valid point. That's true. Especially in Omaha.
Or even worse if you're in the rural part of Nebraska.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Very much appreciate it.
I think I'm next to it. I left my notebook over there.
Okay. Are we next? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Because it's going to happen.
It is.
We might as well get ahead of it.
Yeah.
That's when you asked me like what would cost $4,000. I was like, I don't know, a drone that carries people.
So we'll open the hearing and it'll be 27. Welcome, Senator Floyd.
I think this is starting to be home. So again, good afternoon to Chairperson Linehan and the members of the Revenue Committee. Again, my name is Senator Carol Blood, and that is spelled C-A-R-O-L, B as in boy, L-O-O-D as in dog, and I represent Nebraska Legislature District 3, which comprises Western Bellevue and Eastern Papillion, Nebraska. Today, I'm introducing LB 27, a bill I've brought forward in the past in order to fight against the growth of property taxes across the state by utilizing a circuit breaker system. LB 27 creates a new mechanism for delivering tax credits to individuals whose property taxes are too high in relation to their annual income. This concept is called a circuit breaker because the income tax credits are triggered once property taxes reach a certain percentage of a person's income, similar to how electrical circuit breakers are triggered when electricity surges. It properly addresses the tension between rising property taxes and stagnating incomes. Concerns over property tax affordability have been used to advance a wide array of property tax cuts. I've been talking too much today, such as homestead exemptions, tax rate caps, and limits on growth and assessed value. But no tax cut offers a more targeted solution to property tax affordability problems than circuit breaker credits. This is because circuit breakers are the only tools for reducing property taxes that measures the affordability of property taxes relative to the family's ability to pay. This bill creates a residential refundable income tax credit and a separate, Senator Merman, agricultural refundable income tax credit. The overall amount for the residential circuit breaker credit would be capped at $126 million, and the agricultural circuit breaker would be capped at $74 million. The bill's residential relief would go to taxpayers with adjusted gross incomes of less than $100,000 for married couples filing jointly, or $50,000 for any other taxpayers who rent or own their primary residence in Nebraska. For homeowners, the credit calculation is based on the property taxes paid on the value of their home. For renters, 20% of the rent paid for the taxable year would be eligible for a credit. As income increases, the circuit breaker credit calculation assumes that taxpayers can then afford to spend more of their income on property taxes. Qualified taxpayers would receive refundable income tax credits equal to the amount of their property taxes that exceed the set percent of income up to the maximum amount of the credit. The agricultural land circuit breaker in LB 27 would be available to individuals who own agricultural land or horticultural land that is part of a farming operation that has a federal AGI of less than $350,000 the most recent taxable year. AGI, or adjusted gross income, is defined as gross income minus adjustments to income. Gross income includes your wages, dividends, capital gains, business income, retirement distributions, as well as other income. The tax credit would be calculated based upon the amount by which the agricultural property taxes paid exceed 7% of farm income. 29 other states and Washington, D.C. have some form of property tax circuit breaker system. These include Kansas, Colorado, Montana, Idaho, and South Dakota, just to name a few. Circuit breaker credits are the most effective tool available to promote property tax affordability. These policies prevent a property tax overload by crediting back property taxes that go beyond a certain share of income. Put another way, circuit breakers intervene to ensure the property taxes do not swallow up an unreasonable portion of qualifying households' family budgets. Slightly more than half of states with circuit breakers, 17 out of 30, target property tax cuts exclusively to seniors, on the theory that older taxpayers may have more difficulty affording the property taxes on a home they bought during their prime earning years. And for clarification, our senior one, home exemption, is actually a circuit breaker bill that we have now in Nebraska, just to clarify. But other households are susceptible to a property tax overload as well, including, for example, people who have recently lost their jobs or who live in gentrifying areas. So more than 2/3 of states with circuit breakers, 21 of 30, extend their programs to at least some renters. And Oregon provides its circuit breaker exclusively to renters. Property taxes are inherently regressive. There's that word. In that home values are much higher proportionately for low-income families than wealthy ones. Making matters worse, home values are often mismeasured for property tax purposes in ways that exaggerate this fundamental fact. Specifically, homes owned by lower-income people and people of color tend to be overassessed relative to those owned by high-income people. Circuit breakers are most effective when their benefits are large enough to meaningfully lower property taxes. Their eligibility criteria are not overly restrictive, and residents know about them and can easily access them. Robust and well-advertised circuit breakers have immense potential to promote property tax affordability and improve the overall regressive tilt of property tax systems. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sorry, I tried to make it as concise as I could, but wanted to be very explanatory.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Powell.
Thank you, Chair Lenahan. Actually, it's a request. Can we have a copy of your statement?
Of my introduction?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alex, did you get that? Okay, we'll get it emailed out to you.
Thank you very much. Other questions from the committee? This would work, you don't claim this on your income tax, it's all figured out at the county level?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, and you'll stay closed unless you have your other hearing?
Yeah, unless I have to shoot out to general affairs, but I, again, didn't bring a caravan of people, so
Okay.
we should be safe.
All right.
All right.
So do we have proponents? Any proponents? Any opponents? Anyone wanting to testify in a neutral position?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, distinguished members of the Revenue Committee. My name is John Cannon, Joncannon. I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska Association of County Officials, also known as NACO. Here to testify today in a neutral capacity on LB 27. As Senator Blood mentioned, and we certainly want to thank her for bringing this bill forward. Always enjoy having the discussion. As Senator Blood mentioned, this is a lot like the homestead exemption, which is a form of a circuit breaker. Generally, the theory behind property assessment is that valuations are a function and not the driver of the property tax. However, when only one area of a county or a market area is seeing rapidly expanding valuation increases, that can create a problem when the theory is we want everyone to pay their fair share, right? And so when valuations expand rapidly in one area of the county or a market area and not in the rest of the county for whatever reason, that is going to create an issue for those homeowners. And so if you're a homeowner and for instance, maybe the assessor hasn't reviewed your property in the last 5 years and you know they're going to be reviewing it in the 6th year, and you know that there's a likelihood that you're going to get an increase, it's all going to come at once. And so that's the theory, that's the problem with the general theory about property assessment. Circuit breakers are a great way to address that. But you have to be careful in how you craft them. So we have our constitutional provisions. Article 8, Section 1 of the Nebraska Constitution says that taxes shall be levied by valuation uniformly and proportionately. And the Supreme Court has said multiple times that we need to be sure we're satisfying each element of that. So the tax should be uniform and proportionate. The levy should be uniform and proportionate, and the valuation should be uniform and proportionate. And so to an extent where you're marrying what goes on at the county level with what appears on someone's tax bill, that could be a little bit problematic. And I'm not sure that's necessarily in this bill, but that's where a lot of circuit breakers go in states that don't have the uniformity provision that Nebraska does. Happy to help to work on that to see, what the effects on valuation and taxes are. The other concern that we have is the administration of this and what new burdens it creates administratively, not just for the assessor's office, but also for the taxpayer. The way I read this bill is that you're going to be, the taxes paid in the most recently completed year are going to be eligible for your credit, your circuit breaker. So that means the 22 PAT taxes that I paid in 23, I'm going to be getting a credit for in 24. So you're going to be a little bit removed in time from when you incurred your property tax. I think that's an issue we could probably work on. We have, again, happy to work on that. One of the other things that Senator Blood brought up in her testimony that I wanted to address is that we frequently see overassessment for areas that have low income, high concentrations of low income people or persons of color. We do have a measure, not for low income or persons of color, but we do have a measure for overassessment. It's called the price related differential. I'm out of time. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Dunn.
Thank you, Chair Minahan. What's a price-related differential?
Thank you. That is there are a number of measures that the Property Assessment Division, Property Tax Administrator, the Tax Equalization Review Commission use not just the median value that they're required to use by law when they're doing their annual statewide equalization process. The price-related differential is essentially a measure of overassessment or inequities in assessment. And so it is a way of determining, and if you ask me for the formula, I will not know it. I apologize. I went to law school so I could avoid math and not do it. And I worked for an insurance company in the Department of Revenue, go figure. But the price-related differential is a measure of that inequity in assessments. And so it'll tell you if lower value properties are being overassessed in relation to higher value properties. That is something that is defined by a formula. The Tax Equalization Review Commission has a very specific definition of what it is, along with a whole host of other statistical measures. They have the coefficient of dispersion. They have the confidence intervals that they calculate. And the thing is, and I don't want to volunteer Turk for anything because otherwise Commissioner Holtz is going to be here in a flash. But they have a number of these statistical measures, but there's not a lot that they can do to adjust off of those. And so we have a PRD, we have a COD, we have all these interesting things that say, yeah, maybe there's something going on here that we should do, but they can't really adjust off of it. And so to the extent that that's an issue, that with the overassessment of lower value properties is an issue, we have tools there. We just need to be able to use them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dungan. Are there other questions? Senator Von Gillen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cannon. The question that Senator Myers has asked a couple of times is individuals that might have wealth but not income. And then there are, the ag industry, and this is no secret, I'm not poking farmers, but the ag industry is wisely, they are able to use depreciation to reduce their income in years, as are sub-S businesses that are pass-through entities. So it's not just ag, it's small businesses too. What existing measures are there in some of these existing circuit breaker programs that can avoid gaming of someone's income to utilize this benefit, if there are any?
I'm not aware of them. I mean, but frankly, we've generally accepted that we're going to have AGI as kind of the proxy for what a person's true income is. You're always going to have outliers, and no matter what you decide, if you want to go off of net income or gross receipts or any other sort of thing, there's almost always going to be a way to game that. And so I think we've accepted that going off of AGI probably produces the fewest outliers. I can't say that with authority, but it seems like we've settled on that.
And if I used gaming, that shouldn't be the term that I used. It would be taking advantage of all available tax policies to minimize your tax debt.
You placed it far more artfully than I ever could, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Von Gillen. Are there other questions from the committee? Seeing that, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wanting to testify in the neutral position? We do have two letters, one ADA, and we found out we don't have to read them. It's from Corby Gilbertson, and it is a proponent. Oh, and the organization? Nebraska Realtors Association. Okay, and then we had two letters for the records, both proponents, so you got a high score there.
So I know you're sad to hear this, but this will be my last time in front of you during the special session. But I think I've made it clear that I'm just trying to help solve the problem. And I came to the special session to try and help solve problems, not to rock the boat, not to try to make people angry, not to try and prove a point. And I hope that that's how you saw my bills as well. But specifically on LB 27, I just want to say that I've always, and you know this from the very beginning, just like unfunded mandates, I've always been very verbal about trying to implement more circuit breakers, because we always talk about property tax relief and getting it to the people who really need it. That's how we do it. I'm open to any changes. I'm open to any suggestions. But I just want to say I thank you for your time, because I know being on revenue kind of sucks right now. And you guys are having late days, and I want to say thank you for being here and for letting me bring my bills forward.
Thank you, Senator Blood. I just have one. Does anybody else have a question? I have one, and it's not that it has no reflection. It's a matter of choices, right? and all the things we can do for people who are having issues, whether it's renters or, is this, if we have money to do something, is EITC better, this better? I mean, because when we had 388 on the floor, EITC did come up. And I expect that there's going to be bills for it again, I assume. So,
I don't know if I'm the right person to ask that question.
okay.
I'm partial to circuit breakers because I think they're easy to understand. I think they're fair and equitable. I gotta be honest, I don't have an opinion on that. I'm sorry. I wish I had something
That's
to
fine.
tell you.
That's fine. That's fine.
I keep it simple.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much. And then we'll close the hearing on LB 27.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck in your next one.
Thanks. Gonna generate some more revenue.
Ask Sean. what-
Sean, is he still coming?
Okay. So we're going to skip over Senator Bostar because he's doing another hearing. And we're going to go to Senator Day.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Linehan and members of the Revenue Committee. My name is Jen Day, that's Jenday, and I represent Legislative District 49 in Sarpy County. I'm here this afternoon to reintroduce a bill that you are all quite familiar with, LB 30, which creates a straightforward way to extend our state's homestead exemption to veterans who are partially disabled while serving our country. At the moment, Nebraska only provides a homestead exemption for disabled veterans who have a 100% service-connected disability. This bill has made it to select file in 2 different sessions and was also used as a shell to advance a package of priorities of the Revenue Committee last year. Currently, Nebraska offers homestead exemptions to the following categories: persons over age 65, veterans totally disabled by a non-service connected accident or illness, qualified disabled individuals, qualified totally disabled veterans and their surviving spouses, veterans whose home was substantially contributed to by the VA and their surviving spouses, or individuals who have a developmental disability. Given the challenges that disabled veterans face, LB 30 is consistent with Nebraska's existing homestead exemption categories, and an exemption for partial service-related disabilities has already been implemented in other states, including Alaska, Illinois, Kansas, and Vermont. LB 30 provides a flat amount of relief based on the disability rating of the veteran. So 90% disabled was $900, 70% was $700, and so on, which was an attempt to limit the bill's fiscal note. Under the amended version of the bill, it would provide relief for anyone with a 50% to 90% disability rating, and your amount of homestead exemption would be based on your income level. Obviously, this bill will not solve our statewide property tax issues. However, I do believe that while finding that solution, it is worth considering also finishing the job on a bill that I've never heard anyone publicly come out against. We can pursue an all of the above strategy, and this fits in with other bills that target specific populations that have been brought during special session, like the Targeted Renters Relief Bill, of which I support as well. I know that this committee has a lot of work today, and you've heard this bill many times, so I won't give extended remarks again on this bill, but it remains my hope that we can provide just a bit of relief to those who have made these life-changing sacrifices to us and advance LB 30. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Day. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Van Gillen.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. I remember the bill from last year.
Yeah.
I was trying to look it up and I'm sorry, I couldn't find it quickly. This seems like a smaller fiscal note than the previous bill.
Is it?
can you
I
highlight
think we
what the
had it was
differences
20
are?
million.
Excuse me?
I believe it was 20, was it 20 million, 26 million?
That sounds.
I had about 800 different fiscal notes on this,
Okay.
on this bill
All right.
over the years, so I get confused which one was which.
All right. For some, whatever, I'm sorry, I
I
was
mean,
trying to look it up and.
I hope that you're correct. Yes, well, it's close to, I think, the same as what it was, but slightly lower, yes.
Okay.
And I think that some of the reason is depending on the calculations, I believe the percentage of veterans that we have is decreasing, so I know that that changes the
Okay.
numbers from year to year.
And then we had talked, I know that there were conversations post-submittal of the bill about changing some of the levels, but this is
Yes,
the original.
this is the
building
original
pro-
one
okay,
that I
thank
have
you.
presented. Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Van Gillen. Yes, Senator Duncan and then Senator Cal.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Senator Day, for being here. I appreciate your continued efforts on this. I know you've worked hard on this bill previously. I've been contacted by constituents who would have been directly impacted by this. I've had people reach out who are disabled vets who have said this is a very important issue to them. Just zooming out a little bit, have you spoken to a number of people who this would help, who currently are not able to get a homestead exemption? Are there real world examples, I guess, what I'm saying, where you've heard that this is a real problem?
Yes, and I brought it the very first year, my very first year as a senator. It was a previous bill, I believe, of Senator Wishart's, and so we got the idea from her. But I mean, every single year I hear from numerous people that live in my district and outside my district that really, really want this legislation to pass. And I think part of what happened last session, where it was LB 26 last session, advanced, and it ended up passing, obviously, but it passed with none of the content of the actual disabled veterans homestead exemption left in it. And so I had a lot of people that were really excited that it passed. And then we had to explain to them that it wasn't actually going to provide the benefit that it had originally. So again, that's why I brought it for the third or fourth time again here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dungan. Senator Cal.
Thank you, Chair Linehan. Senator Day, first, thank you for bringing this back. As you look at it, I'm guessing that getting some would be better than getting none of the chart. So
Right.
if we could get 50% or more, that'd be great.
Yes.
Can you give us a breakdown on the fiscal note per level? Does that make sense? So like for 90% disability, what is that fiscal note?
Yes.
be? And just so that we can kind of,
We will,
figure out
yes,
how we
and
can do
that's
that.
kind of one of the changes we made with the committee when you all made the decision to advance it out of committees. I think we then went to 50 to 90%, and it did change the fiscal note a little bit. I will try to get a breakdown.
I don't
of
know if
that.
they can
They're-
break it
they're-
down.
I think they're pretty busy right now, but yes, we will try to do what we can to figure that out. Absolutely.
Thank you, Senator Cal. Are there other questions? Senator Meyer.
I've always liked this idea, and I think I voted in favor of it last time. If we were able to, say, incorporate this bill or the version we passed out last spring in our larger revenue bill with the topics we already have in that, with a revenue stream that's sustainable, would you then be a supporter of that larger bill?
Are you asking me about LB1?
We don't know
Or
yet.
whatever version.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
Whether it's
so
9 or 1
yes,
or combination thereof.
my hope is by the end of this session that there will be a piece of legislation that, whether it includes this or not, that we can support, that I would like to support, because I think we all know why we're here, right? I can't say whether I would support it or not, because I don't know what the contents of it would be or what the repercussions of the different levers moving. I will tell you that I'm hopeful that that will end up happening. There will be something that I could support as a larger package, yes, particularly if it included this.
Well,
I can't give you
appreciate that.
100%
I'm being
yes.
Perfectly honest that,
Right,
we all support the
yeah.
notion that we're able to help disabled veterans. especially.
Absolutely. And one of the conversations I had over the summer with, obviously I'm a senator in Sarpy County. We sat down with the United Cities of Sarpy County, and I believe it was one of the mayors that was there that day. I can't remember who it was, but they had mentioned Illinois they do targeted property tax relief through homestead exemptions, various populations, and they allow people to stack their homestead exemptions. So you can have, you can be a part of populations that receive different benefits from different homestead exemptions, and you're allowed to use multiple of those to provide a greater amount of property tax relief. And I thought that was a really great idea, and this could maybe fit into something like that, or whatever the larger package would look like.
Sure, but the key again is whether we can all agree
A
on some
revenue stream.
to help fund.
Ideally,
Notable things like
ideally,
that.
yes, I would love to be able to find another additional revenue stream for the state of Nebraska so that we can do this. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Meyer. Are there other questions? Did you have an income limit on this? Is that one of the things you said you changed?
We did,
That's like,
yes.
but not last session. This.
I
is-
think we had one last session as well. I will look and let you know for sure.
Because it might have changed the fiscal note. If you didn't
Yes.
have it, now you do.
I think I did, but
Okay,
I could be wrong. I
Okay.
mean, either way.
all right,
Yep.
thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank
you
you.
very much. We have proponents.
Madam Chair, good afternoon, distinguished members of the Revenue Committee. My name is John Cannon, Joncannon. I'm the Executive Director of NACO, here to testify today in support of LB 30, but there's a couple things that we'd like to hopefully see changed. I want to thank Senator Day. There's a number of veterans that serve on the NACO board. We have a number of them, a lot of them in county government in general. My parents are both veterans, and so this is kind of a big deal for us. We like Homestead. It's a targeted property tax relief program, and it is the targeted property tax relief program that we have in the state of Nebraska, and so it's something that we generally are in favor of. As a lot of assessors have told me, it is the only time that people come in the assessor's office and they're happy. There is a little bit of confusion that we have about the numbers. Generally, we talk about a percentage of exemption for Homestead, and here what we're talking about an exemption in dollars. The question is that $1,000 of tax at the highest level? Is it $1,000 of value, which is quite a little bit less actually? And then the differences are going to appear from county to county. For instance, if you're getting $1,000 tax exemption and you're a veteran in Boyd County with a very low value homestead, you might actually be getting more relief than 100% disabled. And so it seems that we would probably want to have these things match up to what we're doing currently with homestead. That's just a technical issue I wanted to bring to the committee's attention. Otherwise, we're very happy to be in support of this bill. Urge its passage out of committee, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Are there any questions from the committee? So you just said, because the part of the homestead exemption, it's on the average of that county, of the average home in that county,
Yeah, we base it on the average assessed value for single family residential.
which is widely different across Nebraska.
Yes, ma'am. 49,000 in Boyd, $259,000 or $253,000 in Douglas.
Got it. That's helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Are there other proponents? Are there opponents? Anybody wanting to testify in a neutral position? Senator Day? And do we have letters?
Okay, I won't take too much more of your time, but
Just a
in,
second, I gotta read. the
Oh, yes,
letters
sorry.
off, I'm sorry. No, it's fine, it's fine. So another one with ADA accommodation, and it's representing, it's for Corby Gilbertson, and it's representing Nebraska Realtors Association, and they are proponent. And other letters for the record are 3 proponents and no opponents.
thank you. Our intention with the bill is to reduce directly the amount of property tax owed. So if it's $1,000, that would be $1,000 off of the property tax bill itself and not the value. Obviously, if you have a $500,000 home, that's not really going to make much of a difference. So if there needs to be some change, clarifying language changes or whatever, we'd be happy to amend it to do that. You guys all understand this bill. You've seen it a million times.
I think if you have a 500,000, it makes it $1,000, still $1,000.
Yeah, but I mean, off the actual tax
It
liability.
wouldn't make, yeah, it
yes.
wouldn't be as obvious if it,
Right.
right.
Yes.
Are there any other questions for Senator Day? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that closes the hearing on LB 30. And we'll skip back to, did I see Senator? Yes, there he is. Senator Bostar, are you ready? You want a break? You want to wait?
No, I'm good. I'm actually still in the middle of the other hearing, so.
You're doing well.
Yes, I want to open here.
Okay,
That's what I'm trying to communicate.
okay.
I'll just have to put that to general affairs.
Are there a lot of people over there?
Well, there's this football coach there.
A winning coach.
Are you fanboy?
He has, he has thoughts about it, so.
We had a coach.
What?
We had a coach. We had our volleyball coach. Good afternoon, Senator Bostar.
Good afternoon, Chair Linehan and fellow members of the Revenue Committee. For the record, my name is Elliot Bostar. That's ELIOTBOSTAR. represent Legislative District 29. Here today to present LB 28, a simple piece of legislation that would exclude restricted funds budgeted for public safety services from the calculation of the base limitation for political subdivisions. This legislation is effectively identical to LB 1216 that I brought before this committee last session. The intent behind this legislation is to exempt or exclude law enforcement, corrections, fire service, and emergency medical services from excessive budgetary restrictions in order to ensure that public safety, a critical duty of government, is never impeded. When the people who keep our communities safe and secure go to work each day, it's critical that they know that they will be provided with the resources and staffing needed to do their job safely and effectively. National events and political trends have created a ripple effect that is making it more difficult and more dangerous than ever to be a first responder. The Bureau of Justice Statistics National Crime Victimization Survey shows a 44% increase in violent crime from 2021 to 2022. These numbers are all also the most recent numbers available. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's criminal data analysis statistics demonstrate a 7% increase in property crime from 2021 to 2022, which came after a decades-long downward trend. The Justice Department estimates that violence against young people doubled from 2021 to 2022. Local 1011 News reported in April of 2023 that within the city of Lincoln, car thefts had gone up 75% over the previous 4 years. Rape had gone up 25%, fraud had gone up 22%, thefts from vehicle had gone up 9%, and felony arrests in general had risen 16%, all over the same time period. According to the 2023 Lincoln Police Department annual report, between 2022 and 2023, child abuse went up 85.29%. Theft went up 47.24%. Use of a weapon to commit a felony went up 19%. Felony assault went up 13.68%. And first-degree sexual assault went up 13.04%. The city of Omaha saw 29 homicides in both 2022 and 2023. In the first quarter of 2024, Omaha has already seen 3 times the homicides compared to the same period of 2023. The city of Grand Island has seen a property crime rate more than 19% higher than the national average. And this increasing demand for emergency services is hardly limited to law enforcement. In 2023, Channel 6 News out of Omaha reported a record-breaking year for emergency calls. It was estimated the Omaha Fire Department responded to more than 68,000 emergency calls the previous year, an all-time high for the community. It's a 12% increase over 2020 and a 33% increase over 2016. All of this, while it's never been harder for departments to recruit and retain staff nationally. Across our country, 78% of agencies reported having difficulty recruiting qualified candidates. 75% of agencies reported recruiting is more difficult now than 5 years ago. 65% of agencies reported having too few applicants. 50% of agencies reported having to change policies and qualifications for candidates. And 25% of agencies reported having to reduce services. With the obvious growing reality of increased demand for public safety services, it's clear that we must take action to safeguard public safety funding against effort to reduce dollars spent on these services. LB 28 does just that. This legislation is both a safeguard against efforts to reduce public safety funding, as well as a way that this body can provide clear direction to political subdivisions about what we consider to be the critical duty of local government. As the governor said yesterday, the highest calling in government is public safety. It's important that we stand together to protect our citizens. As this committee constructs legislation to address soaring property taxes, I strongly encourage each of you to consider the real needs of our communities. I believe we must focus local dollars toward keeping our neighborhoods, our streets, and our children safe in order to safeguard the good life here in Nebraska. An exclusion or exemption for funding public safety services is a critical component to any legislation this committee puts forward for consideration by the rest of the body. I want to take a moment to thank all the first responders who've taken the time to come before this committee to speak out about the importance and necessity of this legislation. I would also like to thank the committee for your time and consideration. And I would encourage you to support LB 28. We have to answer any preliminary questions you may have.
Thank you, Senator Bostar. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Thurman.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Senator Bostar, for bringing this. I was supportive of this last time it was around. I still support this idea. The question I had, though, was the governor indicated in his playbook and his exemptions for public safety a desire, or at least an intent, to also exempt county attorneys and public defenders. the definition I think that's used in your statute here,
It doesn't cover them.
it doesn't cover those. Is
Right.
that something you'd be open to, or is that
Absolutely.
a separate conversation?
No, I'm open to it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's all.
No, it's, the language is identical to what was introduced last year. And when trying to get legislation drafted that could get in under the wire for this session, going with something that they had already written was the right way to go.
No, that makes sense. I just was curious, given that that was in that.
But yes,
playbook
no, the
conversation.
governor's playbook, right? That's what, that also mentioned those populations.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Senator Albright and then Senator Powell.
Thank you,
And
Chair.
thank you, Senator Dunn.
Thank you. So nice to have you back.
It's good to be here.
Busy guy today, hasn't been in the room much. Last year, we didn't have anything to do with volunteers, right?
That's correct.
So what do we do about those counties if we put caps on cities and counties? I mean, where would they fall?
I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, I mean, when it comes to what we're able to provide here, I mean, do you see a need in the volunteers and the EMTs? Some of them have paid EMTs, things like that.
So they would actually be covered. So any expenditure that the political subdivision has, if you look at the definition that's referenced in this particular legislation, it's expenditures that go toward firefighting, EMT services, law enforcement. So if a political subdivision has an expenditure for volunteer fire service, it would also be covered under the language that is in LB 28.
So another thing that they asked me about is equipment.
Yes.
So again, if we have caps on these folks, do you feel like that's when they're gonna have to override and go to the vote of the people to purchase equipment?
So currently in the language in LB 28, there is no specification on what part of fire service, law enforcement's budgets are being exempted. It's all of
Mostly
it.
for recruitment and,
So this is the whole budget. So the language in LB 28 would exempt emergency medical services, law enforcement, fire, rescue, those segments of the budget would be removed from the base limitations calculation.
thank you.
Thank you, Senator Albright. Senator Powell.
So Senator Albright, Senator Duncan kind of hit mine already. Thank you, Chair Linehan, about the county prosecutors. But can you fill me in a little bit more about what are those restricted funds? So we can't have the political subdivision saying, well, gosh, roads are public safety. And I mean, renaming things public safety.
It's defined in law.
Okay.
Political subdivisions would not have the ability to just decide for themselves as public safety.
Okay.
The definition is referenced in our statutes.
Okay. And so anything that is currently a restricted fund that they're using for public safety as defined in statute would be protected.
It would be removed from the base
From the base.
calculation. So
Okay.
yes, effectively, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It's just when they go to calculate their restricted funds allowance, so to speak. That's the wrong word, but I think it's maybe close enough. They wouldn't need to include public safety within that calculation.
Okay.
That's what this legislation does. Obviously, we are working on legislation related to this, and my expectation is the concept here is what's important. To really make it clear, in LB1, we remove restricted funds, right? That stops existing. So the language in LB 28 doesn't really, it's not a great fit for what's in LB1. So the concept here is what I'm really trying to convey. And wherever other legislation lands, I would like to adapt what this is doing to that, if that makes sense.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Powell. Other questions from the committee? I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough to answer this, but to ask the question that I don't know how to ask it. Right now, this public safety, is it part of the restricted funding now?
Yes.
So this is opening the door wider than it currently is, except there's no cap, so not really. Help me figure,
Yeah, so this.
you know what the question I'm trying to ask?
This, I mean, what this would basically do is take it outside. I think it does what you think it would. It would
Okay.
remove it from the lids,
Okay,
is what it would do.
and from any restrictions they currently have.
Yeah, yes.
So
Yes.
it's like a double opening,
Well,
which
it's,
I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just trying to understand.
it's a full opening,
Okay.
right? It's the budgets of public safety services would not have an impact on any of the other calculations.
Okay.
Period, right? So it's just, it takes them and takes them out of the whole equation, is what it does.
Okay, but it'd still be, the local governing authorities still have control whether they give them money or not.
But yeah,
So it's still
absolutely.
up to the
They
board.
still set their board, yeah, their
Yeah,
budgets.
The
Yeah.
board still sets the budget. Okay, thank you. Did I see another question? Thank you, and you have to go back to your other hearing now?
I'm gonna go back, but I hope to be able to
It
make
looks like
this,
you brought a crowd, yes.
this work. So, thank you very much.
Okay, the way we have done all the hearings during this session is we go proponent, opponent, neutral. So I doubt there's any, well, I shouldn't say that. So first proponent. Don't,
Jump up.
just jump. Go.
Hi, good afternoon. Again, good afternoon, Chair Linehan and members of the Revenue Committee. My name is Michonne Morrow, MICHON, MORROW. I'm the Chief of Police for the Lincoln Police Department. And I would first like to thank Senator Bostar and the Revenue Committee for their support of law enforcement, and grateful for the opportunity to be in front of you here again today. I am here in support of LB 28 on behalf of the Lincoln Police Department. The proposed exemption for public safety in LB 28 allows both police and fire to continue to protect our community against threats to life and property. Other exemptions that we've seen proposed during the special session essentially apply only to new hires. LB 28 provides a straightforward public safety exemption that supports all public safety personnel and programs. It supports the safety of the men and women who work to protect the community and allow us to keep our communities safe. The Lincoln Police Department is committed to engaging this conversation by providing information and perspectives to help ensure public safety departments are protected and well-resourced. Public safety is our community's and administration's highest priority and responsibility. In order to fulfill this responsibility, LPD must be able to provide competitive salaries and benefits, new equipment and technology, and training for all personnel. A few examples of increasing costs for our department are recent salary increases that range from 8 to 10% to remain competitive in the market and for recruiting and retaining of our talented personnel. The cost to fully outfit a cruiser has increased 28% over the last 2 years. The cost to maintain and repair police emergency vehicles is up an average of 7%. We're concerned because underfunding can lead to vehicle breakdowns, vehicle shortages, officer downtime, longer response time and service to our community and those in need. The cost to fund our combined pension for police and fire has increased 8.5% over the last 5 years. LPD works hand in hand with other law enforcement agency and community partners to keep our community safe and create efficiencies. Example of this is that with the Nebraska State Patrol, the technical flight officers, security enforcement at or around the state capitol, joint task forces, collaborative responses with Region 5 to mental health, homelessness, and addiction. We want to continue to invest in these important collaborations. However, proposed budget restrictions would likely result in difficult decisions being made, which in turn could adversely impact our ability to provide the level of service that our community has come to expect from LPD. Lincoln is a growing community, and with that comes increased demands. LB 28 would allow LPD to continue to keep those increased demands in mind as we serve our community to keep them safe. Again, thank you for your time and consideration, and I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. proponent? Or are you opponent?
I'm a proponent.
Well, I think that's, are there any opponents here? Yeah, I didn't think so either.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
why I was like-
No, thank you.
Is anyone here neutral position? Okay, proponents, let's go.
So sorry.
No, you're fine.
Senator Linehan, members of the committee, my name is Lynn Rex, Lynnrex, representing the League of Nebraska Municipalities. So LB 28 is needed regardless of what you do with a cap. I mean, the League and NACO have negotiated a cap, which is embedded in LB 388 of 3% or CPI, which is ever greater. That had in section 4, subsection 6, language that Kenny Zoller and Senator Bostar negotiated on public safety. That needs some further clarification. The League and NACO put in language saying any other expenses relating to public safety in a broader context for local agreements. You're looking at LB1. The League and NACO, of course, oppose LB1 because it's 0%. That also has the same language that you had in LB 388 relative to public safety. John Ken and I spoke with Kenny and David Lopez last night. That's still under negotiation about how to deal with public safety. However, notwithstanding what may happen with that, and of course, we're still trying to get to 3% or CPI, which is ever greater, that it's important to also understand that this provision would need to be there for those entities still under the lid on restricted funds in Chapter 13, Article 5. Because Chapter 13, Article 5 relates to all political subdivisions right now, except schools. And if municipalities and counties are taken out of the lid on restricted funds, which is what LB 388 would have done, what LB 1 would do, and also, by the way, LB 80, which the League and NACO have introduced on behalf of Senator Rabel, was kind enough to do that for us. Basically, what you have left is rural and suburban fire protection districts. To your point, Senator Albrecht, they need to have that exception for property taxes dealing with fire services. So, for example, the definition, I think, that was raised here in terms of what constitutes public safety under LB 28, as it was previously in LB 1216, public safety services is defined to mean crime prevention, offender detention, and firefighter, police, medical, ambulance, or other emergency services. And I think there, as you know, there's been discussion which was asked about, do you include county attorneys? Do you include others in that? And that's obviously up to the committee and how that's negotiated. We think a broad context is really important. So we support this, and I have a lot of other information about why we think it's important to do it. But I'm happy to answer any questions when we get to this point here, when the red light comes on, because I do think that it's really critically important when you look at and hear some of the testimony today. And I think one of the most compelling testifiers last session on LB 1216 was by Sheriff Neil Miller. And I know that his deputy's here today to talk about that and all the really serious things that law enforcement, fire, and others are basically facing, and corrections. So just know that there are discussions underway in terms of how to deal with the definition of public safety, and notwithstanding whatever happens with LB1 or LB 80 or any of the other bills, this bill would need to be there for those entities under the lid on restricted funds, because you're not eliminating the lid on restricted funds for everyone. You're just eliminating it for counties and municipalities if you're imposing a different cap.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? So currently, this is a problem.
Yes, I mean, if the special session wasn't in play, if discussion of caps, additional caps on municipalities and counties was not in play, this bill would still be important, because bottom line is municipalities, counties, rural fire protection districts, all political subdivisions except schools have been under the lid on restricted funds in Chapter 13, Article 5 since 1996. And that lid is basically this: you cannot have more than 2.5% over the prior year in restricted funds. Restricted funds includes all property tax, all sales tax, all occupation tax. Everything basically is included in that lid on restricted funds. So you take whatever's the prior year of lid on restricted funds, you cannot exceed that more than 2.5%. If you have growth above the base limitation, which is what this addresses, the base limitation of 2.5%, then you could have that growth. But if it's above 2.5%, and then in addition, a 1% with a supermajority vote. So 2.5% plus if you're above 2.5% with growth, in parenthesis, literally there's probably not even a dozen cities in the state that are above 2.5%, so they can't access that. So in any event, the lid on restricted funds has been in effect since 1996 and will continue regardless of what you do with caps on municipalities and counties.
Growth being growth in valuations or growth, real growth? And it's okay if I'm not.
Growth, yeah, growth under the lid on restricted funds in Chapter 13, Article 5 deals with annexations. It deals with new housing.
So it's real
actual-
growth.
It's real
What
growth.
we refer to as real growth. Okay.
Yes, under the lid on restricted funds, it's referred to as allowable growth. And if the LB1 cap that's suggested, as was the LB 388 cap, as is the LB 80 cap that the League of NACO had introduced by Senator Raybold, that basically allowable growth there obviously is also being considered in that context. But it would be what you would deem to be real growth.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And those caps, Senator, as you know, would replace for municipalities and counties only, would take us outside of the lid on restricted funds. So the caps you're talking about in LB1 that you did talk about in LB 388, which we're talking about again in LB 80, those caps make it clear that for municipalities and counties, they would no longer be under the lid on restricted funds, but the lid on restricted funds in Chapter 13, Article 5 continues for everyone else except schools.
Okay.
That's why this bill is important no matter what.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Any other questions?
Briefly, do you mind? Thank you, Chair Linehan. Thank you, Ms. Rex. I just want to kind of take a second. I don't want to belabor the point too much, but to put a finer point on it, just to clarify the caps that are currently being considered in LB1, which are akin to what was being considered in LB 388. So there was the exemption in there, or exception to the 6% increase in compensation, right? That's the we keep talking about the 6%. That 6% increase in compensation was only for understaffed law enforcement agencies, and that 6% increase in compensation had to go to the filling of currently vacant positions. So that wouldn't go towards equipment, that wouldn't go towards maintenance of vehicles, that wouldn't go towards increasing salary to remain competitive, which Chief Morrow talked about. So the current exception that's being considered on LB1 really is only a 6% increase in salaries to fill vacant positions. It doesn't go to anything else. Is that correct?
Yes, but there still is confusion about, is it 6% on top of the 3? Is it 6% only for the folks that are being the new ones? But it deals with, you're correct, to be fully staffed.
Okay.
That language itself needs to be reworked if that's the direction this committee wants to go. Notwithstanding, to your point, the equipment needs to be outside of it. There are other expenses that need to be outside of those caps. It needs to be outside of the lid on restricted funds, which would be the case under LB 28. LB 28 references 13-320, which would take that out in terms of equipment and that kind of thing. But this is a very limited exception, which is on page, what are we here? Page 6, section 4, paren 6 of LB 1. It's the same ironic pages as it was in LB 388. And we did not include this exception in LB 80 that Senator Raybold was kind enough to introduce on behalf of the League and NACO. And the reason for that is because of the confusion of this language. So we just have simply an exception for expenses related to public safety, because that would also include expenses and other sorts of things.
Okay. I got a lot of contacts from people in my district about that language previously, yes. So I wanted to clarify that. So it's good to know that we can keep working on that. But thank you. I appreciate that.
But I do think it's important to note, well intended. There's some question about what the language did mean in any event. But I do want to say, had 388 passed, and the League and NACO supported that as it applies to caps. We did not weigh in on how you raise the money or any of the rest of it. But in terms of the caps itself, had that passed, we had had negotiations and discussions with the auditor's office in terms of the intent of what that language was. And then we'd be coming back in the 2025 session, had the special session not occurred, to deal with other related issues on equipment and other things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator Duncan. Any other questions from me? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank
for being here. Again, and I haven't done this enough today, but there are yellow sheets in the back. So if you're here and you don't want to testify, but you have a position, you can sign the yellow sheets in the back and say what your position is, and it'll be part of the permanent record. Or if you're here and somebody's already said what you're saying, it will also be part of the permanent record. So, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Linehan and members of the Revenue Committee. My name is Dave Engler, D-A-V-E-E-N-G-L-E-R. I'm Chief of Lincoln Fire and Rescue. I would first like to thank Senator Bostar and the entire Revenue Committee for your support of first responders. I'm here today in support of LB 28 on behalf of Lincoln Fire and Rescue. The proposed exemption for public safety in LB 28 allows both police and fire to continue to protect our community against threats to life and property. Other exemptions that we've seen proposed during the special session are too narrow and essentially apply only to new hires. LB 28 provides a straightforward public safety exemption that supports all public safety team members and programs, whether new hires or personnel with decades of service and experience. It supports the safety of our communities and the safety of the men and women who work to protect the community. We believe it is important to help find solutions to problems, not just complain about them. Like many other public safety professionals, I've been glad to help policymakers like yourselves get the information you need to do your important work during the regular session and continuing during this special session. We all know that maintaining our highly skilled team requires resources. Our fire budget includes competitive salaries and benefits, new equipment and technology, training, and community programs. One example of a recent investment we made is our salary increases for firefighters totaling 18% over 3 years. This was necessary for competitive recruiting and retention of the men and women who serve and protect Lincoln. All of these tools and training must be available to all team members and not just new hires or other narrow exemptions. At Lincoln Fire and Rescue, we believe in partnerships that create efficiency and improved outcomes. Our team not only supports the city of Lincoln, but also state, county, and other government entities. For example, we provide support to rural fire districts in our region. We want to continue to invest in our budget in support of these important collaborations. Lincoln is a growing community, and with that comes the commitment to protect new homes, families, and businesses. That requires strategic and efficient investment in our public safety teams. LB 28 would allow public safety agencies like Lincoln Fire and Rescue to continue to keep families and communities safe across Nebraska. Thank you for your consideration. I welcome any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the committee members? Senator Albright.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for being here. And I just want to kind of wrap my head around exactly what we're doing here. So you still present a budget to your city, right?
Yes, we do.
And if there were something above and beyond, something that you had to have, people come back for a lot of overtime, a lot of time helping an incident of some sort out that goes on for a couple days, whether it's a tornado or fires or whatever it is. What does the city do today? Do they have enough put away for things like that? And can they really tell you, sorry, we don't have the money?
I would say, luckily, we haven't been to that point, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But we work with the finance department, so the finance overall manages the budget. They've got to stay within the lid.
Sure.
And so I would guess that depending on the situation, they would have to take away other resources. I know if I have to stay within my budget, and if, say, personnel expenses due to overtime are above my budget, then I have to take it out of equipment, training, all those other things. So I don't have the latitude to really try to dip into other budgets or anything like that. I've got to stay within the fire department budget.
But I guess I've sat on a city council and a county board before, and I know that you're protecting the people and property, and if there's extenuating circumstances, there's really not been a way that we were able to say no. So maybe that pulls the city back in saying maybe they can't do as many things as they'd like to do in other areas because the money would have to come from somewhere. So if you decided though that you wanted a new, fire truck or ambulance or more equipment, I mean, that I can see would have to be budgeted in like anybody else's budget. But if it's above and beyond in a circumstance with a concert or you guys have the football games or whatever it is, they have to have something, or you guys probably already know from year to year how much it goes up.
Certainly, I think the challenge that we're experiencing today is that all the costs, and I think one of the reasons we're here today is inflation and all those things, but all the costs are far exceeding what we ever thought they'd be. And so we're seeing that we've got to maintain competition. So we've got to look at the personnel costs, but the equipment is just drastically rising. So all those things are really tough to plan for, and we need to be able to be flexible for the future to make sure that we're able to provide that equipment. Sitting behind me is a number of Lincoln firefighters who do an excellent job every day. I have to make sure for them and their families that they have equipment that functions, the best safety equipment that we can get for the price. I owe that to them, and having restrictions on our budget makes it very difficult to do so.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Albright. Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for being here.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Connor, TonyConner. I am the newly elected president of the State Fraternal Order of Police, and I'm here to support LB 28. For a lot of you guys that know me pretty well, I'm going to say something that's going to shock you. I'm going to keep my comments short today, so it's probably a shock to you guys, but
You are, because you're on the clock.
yeah. So the biggest thing that we're facing in law enforcement, obviously I'm a sergeant in Omaha, but representing the entire state of Nebraska, a lot of municipalities are struggling with recruitment and retention, just as we are in Omaha. You guys will hear from the current president of the OPOA here soon with more specifics about the problems in Omaha, but this is just not, it's not an Omaha issue. This legislative body have done a good job over the last couple of years of supporting law enforcement that we appreciate. You guys did things that are good for us, like bringing free college for us and our dependents. We changed the reciprocity process so we can get out-of-state applicants. If we put a cap on these municipalities, it will only erase those 2 forward steps. It almost be putting us a step backward. So we're here to support this bill to make sure that we're not capped, and that each agency still has the ability to do what's going to be necessary to recruit and retain. Also, as you guys know, we have worked with the legislative body to make changes when it comes to our training to make sure officers across the state are being trained properly. We're trying to professionalize the profession every single day. We're trying to get better on police department. So with that comes additional costs when it comes to training, comes equipment. So there's a lot of issues that come that we want to make sure that we're not capped on. So once again, I want to thank Senator Bostar for bringing this bill, and I want to thank you guys all for having this hearing to hear some of our concerns. And I'm certainly here for any questions you guys may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Chair Linehan and members of the Revenue Committee. My name is Gary Bruns, that is GaryBruns. I'm here today as the president of the Nebraska Professional Firefighters Association. We advocate for 1,400 paid firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics across the state. We'd like to thank Senator Bostar and this committee for bringing forward LB 28 because having hard caps on public safety budgets will lead to several negative consequences. One being the inability to adapt to modern emergencies. Public safety needs fluctuate based on various factors such as population growth, pandemics, natural disasters, and technological advancement. A rigid budget cap prevents agencies from adapting to these changes, potentially compromising public safety. As we learned from COVID, there are going to be unforeseen emergencies that we've yet to encounter and will change the way we operate. 2, limiting resources for equipment and personnel. Up-to-date equipment, technology, and well-trained personnel are essential for effective public safety and also keep our firefighters and EMS providers safe. A hard cap will limit the ability to invest in these critical areas, hindering the agency's capability to respond to incidents. As mentioned yesterday, departments have little control over the cost of capital expenditures. And as it was said, I liked it, we aren't buying fire trucks and ambulances at Walmart. 3, increased emergency response time. Understaffed or inadequately equipped departments experience longer response times to emergencies, which put the lives of the community at risk. 4 is that increased workload and burned out. Reduced budgets lead to understaffed departments, placing excessive workloads on the remaining firefighters and EMS providers. This leads to burnout, decreased morale, and compromised performance. Or, as we're seeing, firefighters and EMS workers just leaving public safety altogether. A hard cap will also jeopardize the health and safety of our firefighters and EMS providers. When budgets are tight, necessary protective equipment, training, and mental health resources are often among the first items to be cut. This increases the risk of physical injuries, illness, and mental health injuries. The issues I described are the current reality under our current budget structures. Take, for instance, a community here in Nebraska that deferred maintenance costs for so long that they now have to replace their entire fleet of 54 vehicles at $30 million. Or as in another example, a first-class city hasn't been staying competitive in the job market and will be down an entire shift of firefighters because of recruiting or retention challenges and long-term injuries. The community is already at risk, and hard caps on public safety will only further exacerbate these shortfalls. Public safety is an investment, not an expense. We urge you to consider the long-term consequences of hard cap on public safety budgets. The safety of our communities and the well-being of our first responders depend on your decision. We thank you for your time here today and for your time in the spring. We have a number of members back here willing to testify, but to be mindful of this committee and the community's time, I'll be your only speaker.
Smart.
Here to help.
Are there any questions from the committee? You do understand diminishing returns.
Yes,
Thank you.
I've been watching.
Did he say he's speaking for all of them?
Yes.
I'm speaking for our association. I think you're going to have a number of fire chiefs
Yes,
here and, directors that are going to speak for you, but yes.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, again. Members of the committee, Madam Chair, thank you for hearing our testimony. My name is William Wrinn, Williamrinn. I'm the Chief Deputy Administrator for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office in Omaha, Nebraska. On behalf of Sheriff Hanson and the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, we are proponent of LB 28. I'll go a little off script here, and obviously you saw me here yesterday, and I appreciate your, it can be very brutal, and it was brutal for everyone, more particularly for yourself, so I do appreciate your service. We were in opposition to parts of LB1. The reason we're here as a proponent of LB 28 is that is the patch or the fix that is a smart balance between having the public be safe in their finances and safe from being victims of crime. And we can accomplish both at the same time when we can put smart language together such as this, if not verbatim, at least intent of the concept, I think as the Senator Bostar was speaking of, so that we're not so unoriginal. I'd like to address a couple things that have come back and forth yesterday and today about the confusion of the 6% and the personnel, and there's some ambiguousness to that interpretation. What we believe is most important about LB 28 is that it removes that ambiguous language. It makes it unambiguous, not only for the reader, but for those local boards who are faced with those tough decisions of, does this apply, does it not? It removes that, and it makes the priority of law enforcement and any public safety crystal clear as to what needs to be done. And to address, Senator Albrecht, your one point that you had made with regard to our budgets ever made, or are they not? I mean, I work exclusively with the finance department in Douglas County, and they have a tough road every year deciding what's real growth, how much do we allow percentage growth, and we're kind of wrapped into the sauce, and they do their diligence and make sure that public safety gets what they need. This, I think, improves that situation by not having to consider them. They'll be able to spread their growth out to some of those other departments that have to be left without growth. And with that, I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Dempsey, Patrick Dempsey. I'm a 14 and a half year law enforcement veteran for the city of Omaha and here on behalf of the Omaha Police Officers Association. Unlike Tony, I'm the much better looking president. So you guys have that for you. I want to address the issue of placing a cap on municipality spending, which ultimately places a cap on police budgets. This topic is filled with complexities for public safety, community well-being, and effectiveness of law enforcement. Imposing budget caps on police departments can have far-reaching negative consequences. First, consider the impact on public safety. Police budgets are crucial for ensuring adequate staffing levels and resources to respond to emergencies and combat crime effectively. As many of you know, staffing is an issue that is plaguing law enforcement. Currently in the city of Omaha, we're down 120 officers. That's 13% of our authorized strength. When budgets are constrained or capped, it can lead to understaffing and stretched resources, hampering law enforcement's ability to protect and serve our communities. Second, community policing relies heavily on building trust and relationship with the community that we serve. Budget cuts can hinder community policing efforts as officers have fewer resources and time to engage with our residents, being short-staffed, address their concerns, and collaborate on crime prevention initiatives. Lastly, budget constraints can negatively impact officer morale and recruitment efforts, which this legislature has fought to ensure does not happen in the state of Nebraska. Experienced officers have become disillusioned and leave the force, while potential recruits may be deterred by the prospect of joining under-resourced departments. This exodus of talent can further strain law enforcement agencies and compromise public safety efforts. Although caps on spending may be necessary, including first responders in this will defund the police. In conclusion, placing caps on police budgets has far-reaching complications and is detrimental to public safety and community well-being. We must prioritize adequately funding law enforcement agencies as they continue to grow and compete with qualified talent so our communities continue to thrive. With that, I urge this committee to support LB 28, and I will take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Rod Beathy, RODBUETHE, and I have the privilege of serving as the fire chief for the Gretna Fire Department. I've been a volunteer with Gretna for 35 years and have been the fire chief in the volunteer capacity for 25 of those years. In 2023, I was asked to take a paid position as fire chief for Gretna. I also serve as the president of the Tri-Mutual Aid Firefighters Association, which represents 30 fire departments, volunteer and paid, in the Metro Omaha area. Gretna Fire is also a longtime member of the Nebraska State Volunteer Firefighters Association. Today, I'm here on behalf of the City of Gretna, the United Cities of Sarpy County, the Nebraska State Volunteer Firefighters Association, and the Tri-Mutual Aid Firefighters Association to express our strong support for LB 28. As emphasized by Mayor Rusty Hike of Bellevue and Mayor Doug Kindig of La Vista during the discussion of LB1 yesterday, the United Cities of Sarpy County understand and support the goal of reducing property taxes. However, we believe it is crucial to provide clear exceptions for public safety services. We support LB 28, which aims to remove restricted funds allocated for public safety services from the calculation of base limitations. Public safety is a fundamental responsibility of local government. Currently, cities in Sarpy County dedicate approximately 25 to 30% of their general fund operating budgets for public safety services not covered by interlocal agreements. Last year, the Gretna Volunteer Fire Department responded to over 1,550 calls, including accidents on Interstate 80 and critical medical emergencies where every second counts. As the fire chief for Gretna, I am overseeing our transition to a combination department. We're switching from an all-volunteer to having some paid staff. This transition requires hiring 12 full-time fire and EMS employees, along with the necessary training, equipment, and operational expenses. As our city continues to grow, our residents rightfully expect us to provide comprehensive public safety services. This demand necessitates a significant financial investment, not only in staffing, but in equipping our personnel with safe equipment and facilities, as well as adequate support staff. These are ongoing expenses that cannot be sufficiently addressed through temporary funding increases or annual elections. We need the flexibility to access necessary resources to meet these expanding demands. LB 28, along with a comprehensive public safety exclusion from hard caps, will greatly assist municipalities like Gretna as we grow and transition. Thank you for your attention to my testimony, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Ben Houchin, BenHouchin. I'm the Chief Deputy of Lancaster County, representing Lancaster and the Sheriff's Office. I'd like to say I have something really new to add to a lot of this. I don't. But I do want to talk about unfunded mandates, and that affects us. So court security is 13.2%. State statute says we have to do that. We don't get any money. Sex offender registration, we have to do that, but we don't get any money. Gun registration, title inspections, none of that has gone out. In 81, title inspection, $10. 2024, $10. But it doesn't cost the same to do it for us. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that part of it too when it comes to our budgets. And putting a lid on it would hurt, and especially on unfunded mandates. Any questions for me on that?
I will see. Do we have any questions from the committee?
Interesting.
Explain, I'm sorry, title inspections. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so when a car comes from out of state
Yes.
and they have an out of state title, they have to go get a Nebraska title, so it has to go get inspected. A lot of times people try to get a salvage title washed, meaning it taken off, and then they get more money for it. So we do title inspections to make sure that doesn't happen.
So it's state law that you have to do it, but the county has to pick up the tab.
Well, we get $10.
But
Yes.
I just had this done, actually, a
Yes.
few months ago.
Yes.
So but the customer pays,
Yes, the $10.
and that's fixed by law.
Yes, state statute.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, with our,
That was 1981?
I believe so off the top of my head, yes. I like it with our court services. I said like 13% of our budget goes to that. We have 7 county court judges, 8 district, a referee, and 4 juveniles. And we gotta have, I have 2 sergeants in that, 12 deputies, and 8 building security, and it's about $2.4 million of my budget for that. And I'm being told I have to do that, which I understand to a point, but we don't have a choice. We have to do that. And we don't get to control a lot, that part of it. So if salaries go up on those things, I have to have those deputies in those positions, and it puts us in a world of hurt on some of these things. I have to have at least 3 title inspectors. We've had to go up and add more to that, but the funding has never came up or changed.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Former sheriff from Douglas County has been talking to me, so I've heard this.
Good.
Senator Meyer.
So in your opinion, what would be a fair fee for that? 20, 30 bucks?
Probably 25. Like I said, with the sex offenders things, we get nothing. And we had to add a person to the staff. Now I understand they're not going to pay, and I get the whole thing, and I think it's important that we are doing this, but it does, make our budget go up. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so concerned about this is I don't have it controlled. And, who knows what other things could be coming down through statute that's going to make our office do something that I don't get any funding for, but I'm going to have to deal with. And so this not having the lid on us would help us at least be able to address it and do it, so I don't have to take away from the services we're already doing, because that would stink. I don't want to hurt the public, my citizens in Lancaster County because of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Meyer. Did you have a question? Any other questions? Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Jeremy McCoy. I am it's Jeromy, MCCOY. I'm the Sheriff of Hamilton County, Nebraska. I'm here today to testify in support of LB 28. I want to thank Senator Bostar for bringing this important bill forward. LB 28 is important to law enforcement because it will protect public safety functions by placing them outside of any spending limitations. Other bills before the legislature are attempting to impose limits on our spending, and this is very important. Some examples of how this would affect our small agencies. My small law enforcement agency, we have 10 sworn. We operate a 35-bed jail, multi-county public safety dispatching center. And one example last year, we replaced 2 vehicles every year from our fleet. We ordered those in August. They did not come in until this July. So we had to turn that money back in as we didn't spend it, went back to the budget. Requested it this year. It looks like I'm requesting a 10% budget increase. Just replacing 2 vehicles from last year, 2 from this year. So that this would allow us the opportunity to be outside that in these emergency situations where we really can't control what happens with our supply chain. Operating the jail, this is also an unpredictable public safety aspect. We can't control our jail population, who walks in that door, and their medical needs that we have to provide for. Our county has tried to take some of this uncertainty off the table by entering into a contract for medical insurance for our inmates. However, the county is still responsible for the first $10,000 per inmate. And so, again, if you have 20 inmates, you really can't control the medical needs. We need to have some ability to adjust on the fly when those medical needs come up. So again, just testifying in support. You never know what you're going to run into on law enforcement in these emergency situations.
Thank you very much. Other questions from the committee? You live in Aurora?
Yes,
I have kids, grandkids here.
go to church with them.
You have a very nice community.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mike Robinson, Mike Robinson, and I am the sheriff of Washington County. As you know, in the last year, Washington County, we experienced 3 homicides, an F4 tornado, devastating flood, and stopped a nationwide fraud ring based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Just the 2 of those homicide cases were in Washington County. We were responsible and the lead agency in investigating those. And I can tell you that those homicide cases resulted in about $15,000 plus in overtime cost and $15,000 plus just for equipment and other items needed for that. Because of what happened in the last year in Washington County, my overtime budget was 210%. It ended June 30th. And my law enforcement equipment was 178% of what I budgeted. Overall, I had $68,000 over budget in the patrol budget that covered those costs. In addition, this year's budget, my inmate medical costs for the jail went up 9%. I had to budget $237,000 for that. We have constant equipment and technology upgrades throughout the office. If there's not a law enforcement exemption, I can see what's going to happen. And you can disagree. I'll agree with that. Eventually, it's going to come down to if we can't get the increases we need to fully fund our offices to respond to these emergencies, to respond to normal everyday patrol tactics, or even follow-up investigations, and to keep up with our technology and equipment, we'll eventually have to start laying off officers. 78% of my budget is strictly personnel cost. And with that, I'll agree to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for being here. Do we have any questions from the committee? You had a tough year. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jerry Stilmock, Jerry testifying on behalf of my client, Nebraska State Volunteer Firefighters Association, in support of the legislation brought by Senator Bostar. Fire districts were set 1996-1998 era in the funnel districts. They have to look up, if you will, to request lever authority to the counties in which they're located. That's tough enough, but if a 0% comes in, they're really going to be in trouble. You heard yesterday from the Kearney City Administrator, the wonderful relationship they have with volunteer fire. Rescue is provided by another entity. Bellevue already's moved. Gretna is moving to a paid staff, a combined volunteer and paid staff. Bennington is moving to a combined staff of paid and volunteers. But it's the smaller ones, those that are at $15,000, $16,000, $20,000 a year just to cover fuel and insurance. Workers' compensation must be provided under Nebraska law for volunteer fire and rescue. The Howells Volunteer Fire Department, they had scheduled a 20-year replacement for a fire truck. Right now, they had to move that to 28 years. And if there's a cap, I don't know how they would do it. They're trying to cover it with existing tax levies without going to bonded indebtedness. The volunteer service gets used equipment for excess military equipment that's provided by the Nebraska Forest Service. I'm trying to give you a glimpse of the different things, the different aids, sometimes Band-Aids to make public protection, public safety work for the volunteer areas and the communities which they serve. The folks behind me know very well bunker gear is, it has elements in it that was wonderful when it first started, but now we learned that it's causing cancer among the firefighters, paid and volunteers. So that bunker gear is needing to be replaced. What's happened last year and the year before and the year before that with wildland fires? They're not just in western Nebraska anymore, they're across the state. What was 2023 was burning up. Iowa fire jumped across the Missouri River. My point is there's two sets of bunker gear because lo and behold, you can't go on a wildland fire with structure fire equipment. Two sets of bunker gear are required many times. The Lake Cunningham recently had a drowning. Who was there? Omaha, Bennington, and Waterloo. Waterloo completely volunteer. There's extra things that they have to pay for. The bomb was dropped in Ogallala last year. The bomb was after years and years of service by the hospital in the area. They gave them a 6-month notice. EMS services are going away. Cover yourself up. So the city of Ogallala and the county of Keith joined together quickly in order to form an interlocal agreement. Interlocal, even in under LB1, I believe is still would be exempt. My point is, as the gentleman said before me, or the two gentlemen before me, you don't know what's around the corner. And when legislation is passed, we don't know the impact of what's going to have. One last point, if I may, Madam Chair and members. The Department of Health and Human Services has a wonderful pilot project to support the dwindling numbers across the state for rural EMTs. They have a pilot project, a freebie for 1 year. Ravenna was the first city to join in that effort to get that free service. After 1 year, that fee, in order to continue that wonderful service of telemedicine with a paramedic on the other side of the line, a physician on the other side of the line, $20,000 to $30,000 annually. $20,000 to $30,000 annually just to keep that thing in place. And then once you put the candy in front of the, if you will, the receiver, take it away. See what happens then. And I didn't say that in a threatening way. It's just factual. I want you to know what's going on across Nebraska on the volunteer services. Thank you for the extension of time. I appreciate it. We support LB 28.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate the explanation.
Proponents?
Members of the Revenue Committee, my name is Kevin Edwards, KEVIN-EDWARDS. I'm the Fire Chief of the Millard Suburban Fire District and the Administrator of the Papillion Rural Fire Protection District. And we are a proponent of LB 28. The Millard Suburban and Papillion Rural Fire Districts each contract through interlocal agreements for our fire suppression emergency medical services with fire departments that utilize paid firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics. Our contracts for service require us to pay a portion of the cost associated with providing this 24/7 service to a combined population of approximately 61,000 people. Our general fund costs go up approximately 7% per year. With the hard cap of any amount less than that, we would not be able to support those services fully, and cuts in personnel and/or equipment would be necessary, which would cause a reduction in services. Please support LB 28 in a manner that will allow our fire districts to continue to provide these essential public safety services without any reduction in the service levels. And with any of that, I'd like to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee? So you're Millard outside the city limits or?
Yes, Millard is outside the city limits. We have district in Douglas and Sarpy County. We
Okay,
have about $5 billion in valuation, and 2/3 of it is in Sarpy County, and the other third of it is in Douglas County.
okay. And in the Sarpy County, you're not in the city either. It's all
No,
SIDs.
all SIDs and unincorporated areas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Madam Chair, good afternoon. Distinguished members of the Revenue Committee, my name is John Cannon, Joncannon. I'm the Executive Director of NACO, here to testify in support of LB 28. Thanks to Senator Bostar, a member of your committee, for bringing this bill. We think it's extremely important, especially when we're in a special session where we're going to be discussing a lot about caps. I can't say any more ably than the gentleman before me have, and certainly some of the folks that come after me. One thing I will note, and I think Deputy Schleusner is going to be talking about this from Buffalo County. Buffalo County recently received an inmate whose medical needs are $50,000 a month, and their budget on an annual basis for med is $300,000. Last year, they had the same guy in there. He alone cost them $450,000. So they blew through their budget for one person. That highlights the problem that we have. We have, when people are inmates, my understanding is that they're not eligible for Medicare or Medicaid, and therefore that's going to be a medical cost that's incurred entirely by the county. A lot of everything that we've talked about, however, also includes links to other things that are not strictly the folks in uniform that we have here today. Public safety relies on things like 911 and dispatch, adult detention, the county attorney's office, public defender, as you had noted, Senator Dungan, the courts, emergency managers. Anytime we talk about an emergency, those are the folks that are on the ground helping us get through those sorts of things. And one other thing I'd like to mention is just show of hands, how many of you all know what the largest mental health facility in the state is? It is the Douglas County Jail. And Senator Linehan, she was quicker than me on the draw. These are all things that are vital parts of public safety, and I don't think they should be overlooked. I think to the extent that we can settle on a good definition of what public safety encompasses, I think that'd be all for the good. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have, acknowledging the law of diminishing returns.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cannon, any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Next proponent.
Madam Chair, members of the Revenue Committee, my name is Dan Schleusner, DANSCHLEUSENER, the Chief Deputy for the Buffalo County Sheriff's Office. I'm here to support on behalf of Sheriff Miller and the Buffalo County Sheriff's Office in support of LB 28. I don't want to belabor the points made prior out of respect for your time. But I can echo all the points that they did make in regards to law enforcement. The 2 points that I would like to make are in relation to how it affects us locally in Buffalo County and the city of Kearney. First, the growth that Buffalo County and the city of Kearney are experiencing through business development, recreation, tourism, lodging, the growth that we're having, those business owners and investors expect public safety to keep up with that growth. And I feel that that growth could be stifled if there's not the safe communities and the services able to be provided for that growth to happen, especially what we're seeing on the south part of Kearney. The second point I would like to make is, and John Cannon had referenced it, we did have and currently still do have an inmate. His prescription drugs cost $50,000 a month, and that will quickly eat up a jail budget. So I can answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much for being here. Are any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Other proponents? We don't have any opponents. Nobody snuck in or, okay. And Senator Bostar's not here to close. He must still be.
Yeah, he's still stuck in General Affairs. He thanks the committee for
Okay, so we had 4 letters for the record, 2 proponents, 1 opponent, and 1 neutral. With that, we close the hearing on LB 28.
Good time.
You're just looking guilty. All these guys, you have that guilty look.
Does he? Just loves it? Okay, noted.
I got ammunition.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, I know how to clear a room.
I didn't know if that was a theme.
All day, all week, come on.
You're much better than me.
Oh, yeah. I think this is the emptiest it's been all day. I don't think it's you. I just think it's freezing. I heard it's either you well.
This is for the
Yeah, you know, my huge impact.
I was there. When I came in, it was like 5 years old, so we just showed them.
was already getting kind of steamy out there, but I thought I'd wait around.
Okay, welcome, Senator Conrad.
Thank you, Chair Linehan. Thank you, members of the committee. My name's Danielle Conrad, D-A-N-I-E-L-L-E. Conrad, C-O-N-R-A-D. I'm here representing North Lincoln's Fighting 46th Legislative District. I proudly introduced LB 31 to make sure that we continue our discussion in this extraordinary session of the Nebraska Legislature to talk about reasonable, sustainable, and equitable tax relief and tax policy overall. LB 31 would create an excise tax of 9.5% for dollars earned above a certain amount for single married filing separately or wills and trusts, a levy of 9.5% over $1 million of income for single married filing separately or wills and trusts that will be levied. For married filing jointly or head of household, the income over $2 million threshold, the excise fee would be levied, all less the applicable income tax rate in section 77-2715.03. So I believe that this measure may provide an opportunity for negotiation or common ground by addressing our revenue structure to ensure that it's equitable, but also leaving in place the income tax cuts and corporate tax cuts that the legislature decided to pass a few years ago for the vast majority of taxpayers. This bill would impact approximately 307 individuals in Nebraska, 2,688 joint filers, 20 head of households, and 46 married filing separately. It is a very targeted tax towards the very highest earners in our state. Far less than 1% of Nebraska taxpayers would be impacted by this measure. So if this measure were to be enacted, it would bring in approximately $30 million in fiscal year 24-25, about $44 million in fiscal year 25-26. So it goes to show for this very, very targeted tax approach, it could generate significant revenue in Nebraska for a variety of different sources. I've directed this to be established into a cash fund, and that the cash fund could be transferred by the legislature for general fund purposes, property tax relief purposes, or for school funding purposes. So I did not ask anybody to come testify in support or opposed or neutral. I thank the committee for your incredible hard work during the course of the session and leading thereup to. I, like most senators, have been watching as much of the hearings as I can and was with you late into the night last night. And I know you're working really, really hard and taking all of this feedback and all these different ideas into consideration. And even when we find ourselves in disagreement, it's with great respect and admiration for your service. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on committee? Senator Albright.
Thank you. Could you just tell me again those numbers?
Yeah.
And what they were? It was just too fast.
So, and these are estimates that we got working with research and fiscal, but they estimate that this bill, because it sets such a high threshold of over $1 million or $2 million, depending upon the category, the bill would impact approximately 307 individuals in Nebraska, about 2,688 taxpayers who are married filing jointly, about 20 head of household filers, and about 46 married filing separately.
How many married?
About 46 married filing separately. So it's a very, very small percentage of Nebraska taxpayers.
Is it?
Oh, sorry.
Thank
Is
you.
that helpful?
Senator Albright. Senator Daniel.
Thank you, Chairman Hand, and thank you, Senator Conrad. So just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, similar to how income tax works when you kind of get into the next bracket, the 9.5% on each dollar earned is only above that million, right?
That's right.
Once you cross that $1 million threshold, then everyone beyond that is 9.5%?
Yes, I believe that's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure it's clear that this isn't just an additional tax on all of the money. It's just the part over
Right.
$1 million.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes, and if we need to make any technical adjustments to achieve that, I'd be happy to work with the committee or otherwise. But it's meant to just apply to that very, very small class of high wealth Nebraskans to provide a little extra revenue for general fund, property tax relief, or school funding, while leaving in place the vast majority of the income tax cut and corporate cuts that are scheduled to progress and take effect that the legislature passed in 2023.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Senator Daniel. Senator Van Gillen.
Thank you. Question, why an excise tax instead of another bracket in the income tax?
Thank you, Senator Von Gillerin. I am very flexible with how we address the technical aspects of the bill. I purposely wrote the bill to go to appropriations, and so I created a cash fund in that regard. So, but I'm always happy to be in front of the friendly confines of the Revenue Committee. But it was a little bit of art and science, honestly, knowing or having a general idea about what would probably be in the call, but not knowing exactly what would be in the call. I knew excise taxes would be on the table. I knew that aspects of the budget would be on the table. So that's why I had crafted it in that regard, because I thought it might come in the call purposes from excise tax angle or from a budgetary angle.
Excise tax is easier to direct where the funds.
Yes,
go.
that's
Okay.
another
All right. Okay,
feature
that's
that we could definitely take a look at too. And, also my reading of past practice in the Nebraska case law, which of course you're all very familiar with, once we got the call, and I think it does provide a lot of latitude for the legislature to address solutions. We also know that it can be amended at any time, and that has happened in past negotiations. So I'm not necessarily married to the technical components, but I have brought measures like this in the past during my tenure in the Nebraska legislature. It's colloquially known as a Buffett rule or a millionaire billionaire rule, where you do have a different tax treatment for very, very high wealth individuals.
You do realize this would not collect a dime from Buffett, though?
I
You can
think
call
that
it that all
we
you
can,
want, but-
I think that we can have some discussion and dialogue. I understand that people have different assets and different types of wealth in terms of what's subject to taxation. But I think just for a general kind of common understanding, the effort is meant to ensure tax equity for the highest earners.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Senator Brungiller.
Thank you, Senator Brungiller. Are there other questions from the committee? Do you have any exception for a person or a couple that sell their business? And so their income for most of their lives been $250,000. But
So-
then they decide to sell it, and they sell it for $2 million.
Right. Thank you, Senator Linehan. I don't think the bill as written does provide that exception. I know, having worked on this policy in the past, that was perhaps criticism or constructive or otherwise that business leaders brought forward on similar ideas to talk about the one-time millionaire or the one-time billionaire or what have you. That when somebody does have that kind of life event or business event, that would only temporarily include them in these very highest brackets. That's something that the committee and the legislature needs to be thoughtful about. So if there is a general interest in crafting something like this to ensure equity for the highest income earners or highest net wealth kind of folks in Nebraska, I'd be happy to work with you or the committee in the confines of existing legal restrictions that might be out there in terms of how and when we subject things to tax.
Because I don't believe we have a capital gains exclusion.
Right. Right.
Why
Yes.
capital gains?
Yes, thank you. And I know, having worked in the past, and this is an issue that this committee's looked at before, when Senator Breezy was here as some of his past work, he was looking at other things like the extraordinary capital gains treatment and things like that have cost the state a significant amount of lost revenue and apply to a very, very small amount of very, very wealthy Nebraskans. And I don't begrudge their wealth and their success.
That's one opinion that has cost the state. The other opinion is they would move.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's the other side of the coin on that. And I think that is something important to give voice to. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
I'll waive closing in interest of the committee's time, but thank you very much. And of course, we'll be around all session to continue the dialogue. Thank you. Thank you.
Proponents? Sending me their house looking right now.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Linehan, members of the Revenue Committee. I am sure you're all shocked to see me here. My name is Joey Adler-Ruane, Joey-Adler-Ruane, and I am the Policy Director at Open Sky Policy Institute, here today to testify in support of LB 31 because it would help make our tax code a little bit more progressive. This bill would levy an excise tax of 9.5% on every dollar earned above $1 million for individuals or $2 million for joint filers, heads of households. This would be in addition to the yearly personal income tax cuts for the second and third highest tax brackets that were passed in 2023. Open Sky supports an additional tax on the state's highest earners. According to this bill's fiscal note, LB 31 would bring in $30.5 million in additional tax revenue this year and an additional $44.7 million next year. While this is a positive shift towards progressive taxation, these new revenues will be outweighed significantly by the income tax cuts scheduled to come into effect over the next 3 years. According to the Legislative Fiscal Office, these cuts are estimated to cost the state $387 million in lost revenue this year and $750 million by fiscal year 28-29. For this reason, Open Sky supports 31's intent to levy a new excise tax on top earners, but believes this legislation would be most effective if paired with, shocker, proposals to pause the income tax cuts in order to improve long-term sustainability in Nebraska income tax code. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
I feel the same way.
That was loud.
I think that's my sign. Thank you very much.
No, wait a minute, no.
I was so close.
You were so close. I do enjoy it. You're pleasant. I'm trying to, I did have a question, but the yay flew it out of my brain. I know this is Open Sky's policy, but I feel like we're on the record and I need to.
Sure.
We keep saying that, that's going to be a problem. But the way the fiscal office does things, my understanding, and it's very conservative. They have taken our growth, like they have decided that we're gonna get less money next year than we did this year, for the next like 2 or 3 years, because they're saying it's tax cuts.
Mhm.
So it's not like we haven't accounted for those tax cuts in the budget. They're, I think, way over accounted for. So,
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to, I think there's maybe a little agree to disagree on that issue, right? I think we've debated this several times, and I think the way that we look at the accounting for that is maybe a little bit different than legislative fiscal does. And that's, I think, really
you're
just,
more conservative than legislative fiscal.
I think we are more concerned about the impacts coming in. Whether that's wrong or right is still, clearly to be seen. And as you pointed out, sometimes we overestimate things and underestimate things on both sides, both at fiscal and at open sky. So
I know, I've never had enough time to go back and look at all your, though I printed them off, all your future, not yours, the open skies, what they have predicted.
yeah,
They've been off even worse than the fiscal.
I will take your word for that one. I've only been here for 2 years.
Okay. This probably happened before you were here. Okay, any other questions from the committee? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Appreciate it. Any other proponents? You've got to be kidding me. Is there no opponents?
Sounds like consent.
Can you say that louder so the press hears? Is there anybody in the neutral position? Okay, letters for the record. We have, here they are, 2 proponents, 3 opponents. And that's it? Thank you. Thank you. You don't want to post? I'd leave. You're winning. Right. Thank you. Good night. Good night. Come on, Brad.
Chop, chop. Get this done.
What do you do with this deal? Oh, okay. Look at that. Hey, Tom.
Hey, yeah, I'm in my usual spot last.
That's straight.
So what did it cost to join the Millionaires Club? 9%.
9.5. So when you sell your land someday?
I hope I have that problem.
That's not,
My problem is I've already got a buyer and he's 29 and he's not going to pay that for it.
right. So some people would call that tax avoidance.
Tax avoidance is not tax evasion.
Or gaming the system.
That's the phrase I was looking for. Where were you?
That
So
was
are we ready to roll? I'm last. I'm standing between you and Billy's and we can all get out of here.
Yeah, I would suggest that the revenue committee all this week doesn't hit Billy's before like 7 or 8 at night, and by then they should be home.
Okay.
Not that I'm their boss.
All right, here we go. LB 33. Good afternoon, Chair Linehan and members of the Revenue Committee. I'm Senator Tom Brandt, TOM, BRANDT. I represent Fillmore, Thayer, Jefferson, Saline, and southwestern Lancaster counties. Today, I'm bringing a version of a fail-safe for this special session. While I believe that we can come up with a transformative property tax relief plan this special session, I am offering this just in case the legislature isn't quite ready to tackle that yet. This bill simply adds an additional $300 million to the Nebraska Property Tax Incentive Act, commonly known as 1107, and another $300 million next year. This increase would put the fund at $860 million for this year and over $1.1 billion next year. If we go 10 days and there's just too much contention on a property tax relief proposal, we can pass this, go home, take a breather, refresh, and come back in January to tackle the issue. The idea would be people who claim this credit can get a better rate on the credit. That's all this is, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Senator Brandt, are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you much. Proponents?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having this hearing. My name is Merlin Nielsen, Merlyn, Nielsen. I hope you're not tired of seeing me yet, but it's been a tremendous week. I just really greatly appreciate all the time that this committee has poured into preparation for this week and the work this week and the work that is coming yet for you. Thank you, Senator Brandt, for bringing LB 33. I didn't prepare any notes because you've heard me talk already about how I felt about LB 1. That has a tremendous win-win at the end from my standpoint, if we can take it to that point and get that tremendous amount of property tax relief by having the state take on most of the general fund that we have for our schools. You heard me visit about LB 9 on Monday. It's the starting point on that is a real heartburn for me, but if we could start at a much greater amount of help or start at a much lower cap rate, get that down to 0.5 or 0.45 to start, then I'm on board and ready to go because it fits my situation. And just like Senator Brandt just said, I looked at this bill as the one that if things fall apart and we just can't find enough supporting votes, even with some amendments to bring something else along like the 1 or the 9, this is a nice out. And I have benefited greatly. And so appreciate the work of past revenue committees and legislature with I guess we call it the tier 2 benefits now, the roughly $560 million. That makes a tremendous income tax rebate that I get back to really offset my property taxes I pay in the schools. And to take that 560 to 860, and then goodness, if we could go one more year after that to the 1.16 billion, just tremendous amount of support that I would get. Thank you again for all of your efforts. Thank you for listening today. Thank you, Senator Brandt, for bringing this alternative. And I rest.
Thank you very much for being here. Are there any questions from the committee? I really appreciate all the hard work you've done over the years too. So I may never have you in the committee. Well, maybe we're not done with this week, but anyway, I do appreciate all your hard work and your constant calmness and real numbers and spreadsheets to back up what you're saying instead of just,
I must have
things.
nothing to do, retired professor, nothing to do, right?
You're useful to us, so thank you.
The greatest asset.
Okay. Thank you much.
You're welcome. Other proponents?
Good afternoon. Chair Linehan, members of the committee, my name is Bruce Rieker, B-R-U-C-E-R-I-E-K-E-R. I'm the Senior Director of State Legislative Affairs for Farm Bureau, here testifying on behalf of our organization and the Ag Leaders Group. You can see them all listed there. My testimony is, I agree with what Senator Brandt said when he introduced this bill. We appreciate him bringing that. We appreciate all of you. And while we're throwing out accolades, I want to tell you that I appreciate Merlin Nielsen too, because, gee, Merlin, how many times a week do we talk? Anyhow, he helps me sharpen our numbers and things like that as well. My only regret is I wish the previous bill affected me. And with that, I'm done.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Okay, I'm real tough here, Bruce.
Yeah, sure.
Are all these ag groups willing to pay 2% on machinery to pay for this?
Not right now.
Or what are they willing to do to pay for this? You just laid it.
Yeah.
300 million, and part of my frustration is you were here when we got 1107, right?
Right, yeah.
How hard was that?
How hard was that?
How hard was it to get the 1107 passed?
Well, in my estimation, it was very hard.
Right, well, so I feel kind of sorry for some that have come since then and that weren't here when we
Right.
did that.
Right. So here's the math for us, okay?
I know your math. I've heard it 100 times.
Well, I was going to
You're
share with
bringing a
everybody
bill
else.
that you know has no chance. Where would you get the votes for this?
Here's,
No press here, right? There's no
right.
press. It's
Yeah,
just us team.
this is fine. This bill, yeah, it is brought because just in case the legislature fails to do anything else, at least you could do this and say you did something.
Bruce, where would we get the votes?
I'm not saying it's there. I'm just saying, you know, and maybe this is an all or nothing session. It's just like, you know, if we can't
No,
get,
but let's just say we're
Yeah.
right where you say, and we can't do anything else. How could we possibly pass this? You don't have the votes.
nothing does right now.
No, nothing does.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thank you. It's just, it's, I understand. I want to solve this as this whole committee wants to solve it.
And so do we. And we believe it's possible. And, you know, it's, yeah, everybody's been staking out their position or their turf this week. But, you know, I'm here to tell you, now that everybody's done or close to staking out their position, we will work with you to figure this out. Okay? We will. Now, for others on the committee, agriculture gets 23% of any of the property tax relief that's generated. Okay?
From what? 23% from what?
Any new money that goes to property tax relief, it's just, if it's distributed either through 1107 credits or through another funding source. Now, who's the recipients of it in agriculture? It depends on whether we're distributing it based upon valuations and the proportion of that, or whether it's based on taxes paid, which is 1107. So roughly 23%. And this includes ag land, farmers resident, or ag producers residents, and their farm sites. Right now, according to the Department of Revenue, the property tax administrator, and I can give you the numbers, ag gets 23% of the relief, okay? Residential gets about 51%. Commercial gets just slightly less than we do, probably 21%. I don't remember the number exactly. And the rest is centrally assessed property, okay? So here's our math, just so we can all be on the same page. If you're going to tax us at 2%, that's $96 million. Why would we agree to anything that would give us less than a $96 million reach? If you're asking us to put money on the table, okay? Please don't ask us to put money on the table and then we lose in the benefit equation. So if you take 300 million, ag's share of that is 69 million. So are you saying you want to tax us 96 million? And if we go to 4%, that's 191 million. So when we get to a math equation, and this is a math problem, but, okay, I'm speaking as candid as I can to all of you folks.
That's what we need to do, because
We-
we're on a very short lease here.
Yeah, I know, I got it, okay? And I know there are some people in this room that are very frustrated with the position that we put down. I mean, that we have stated. Okay. I'm here and I'm willing to work with every one of you. And as we're being as candid as can be, I have as much of an issue lobbying up where I work as lobbying with you. Okay? But we're going to work through.
We are on TV, just
Yeah,
which Senator
yeah, that's fine.
Ron Gillen was
Yeah.
nice enough to remind me.
But we have a very diverse membership, okay? We have some that see the trade-off as it works, that it works. Some don't. But what, I don't, we're not going through everybody's individual math. But when it comes to the math, if our relief is less, would you take a deal?
No, this is very helpful.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. So on these price points,
So the property tax relief has to be more than you're paying, more than you would pay in new,
absolutely.
right? Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right.
And so that's,
So you don't think if we picked up 100% of school funding, or 80% or 90%, whatever it is, because
Yeah.
it's not on buildings and I know you get overridden on a bond, that's a concern,
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
What's the number? What is the number you would get if we got to that, do you know?
absolutely.
What
So,
is,
okay,
in your
is-
number, in your figures, what number is that?
Okay. Are you talking 1.7 billion? I think that's the number we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, 23% of that would be roughly 230, around 400 million.
Over and above what you're getting now, is that what we're dealing with here?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So here's the concern from us is we get that's the target, but very little in LB1 seems to get us there. And the fact that one day it's 2%, another day it's 4%.
Okay, that's legitimate, but,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, but if you get to the 1.7 billion, to turn that down compared to what it would cost, that truly is a no-brainer, okay?
Okay,
As to what you're proposing. I get that. But we're also not ready to buy a car that's not built.
okay.
I'm really, and I'm fine with people hearing this, but I'm glad we're having this conversation.
I know,
because
but I
this
think
is-
maybe we should pause it,
Okay,
let Senator Brandt finish, and then
Yeah.
we could continue.
okay, yeah.
Okay, so any other questions for Mr. Reefer? Thank you. Are there any opponents? Anyone neutral? Would you like to close? Waves closing, letters. ADD, representing Nebraska. ADA. That's me.
Tell me when you shut off.
Oh, y'all are good at that dyslexic. I'm also. It's Corby Goverson, Nebraska Realtors Association. Proponent. All right. There you go. Open skies. Opponent. Surprise, surprise.
And then this is 4CA and 5CA. They were at the back of the set, and I forgot to give them to you this morning, so we should probably at least read them on the record. These were for the.
Even though it's a different hearing?
Yeah, this constitutional amendments from this one, so.
Okay, so we're closing that hearing. That hearing's over. Leave the camera on. We also had letters for the record on LR 5CA. Proponents 39, opponents 2, neutral 1. We also had letters for LR 4CA, proponents 51, opponents 3, 1 neutral. And with that, we'll close our hearings, and we're done for the day. Who's back there?